Howdy, gang, and welcome to yet another Apples and Oranges. Tonight, we will be talking about Argento versus Fulci, or maybe just Argento and Fulci. We're going to do a little comparison tonight of these two Italian directors. I'm more than likely going to be going it alone. If somebody does come in and would like to join me on here as I'm discussing these two directors, feel free. I will make sure that I get the link to you, either, in a Facebook message if you're my friend on Facebook, or I can simply put it in the chat. Before we get started tonight with these movies, I just wanted to remind you about what we've got coming up for the rest of the week. Now, tomorrow night will be another edition of I Know What You Shot on Video. I'm planning on talking about Blonde Death and The Bleeder tomorrow night. So hopefully I'll be able to watch both of those films. I probably need to rewatch Blonde Death because I watched it a while back. And Friday will be a double dose of me. The second dose, I will be joined by Candace. But I didn't pull my microphone over here. First will be Terror Time tea. And I will be having a little tea and some frosted lemon cookies. And also talking about Luther the Geek and a Pete Walker slasher called Schizo from this Pete Walker collection. And for Friday Foolish, Terror Time Tea should be at 11:45 Eastern Time, AM, that is, on Friday. And at 1 p.m. on Friday, Eastern Time, me and Candace will be on talking about favorite horror masks and favorite horror characters. So be sure to tune in for all of that Thursday and Friday. And no movie munchies because I'm taking a few months off from the movie munchies. But I will say I had been discussing the movie munchies with Steve. And where sometimes I was doing a live stream, most of the time, actually, I was doing a live stream for them. Steve and I had been discussing it, and Steve said, you know what? He said, I think if you did them pre recorded, he said you could edit them the way you wanted, and I think it would be easier on you. And truth be told, guys and gals, I thought it would be easier too. Because these are making food. And honestly, I had more people watching on the replay than I ever did come to the actual streams. And it might be the time of day that these are taking place, and they usually took place on a Sunday. People might just be busy with other things. And the great thing is, just like Steve said, I could edit these. I could put commercials in them. Wouldn't have to worry about dead spaces in there that I had to go back and fill in, or cut the dead space out and put a commercial in. Which, truth be told, I've been a little lazy about doing that. So some people may have watched these things and thought, "Good Lord, what's this 20 or 30 minutes of dead space she's got in here? Why don't she do something about that?" Because I'm lazy, folks. And time gets away from me, and then I never go back and do anything to them. So when the movie munchies return, they will purely be pre-recorded. So the watch alongs will continue the following weekend, not this weekend, but the following weekend. And I'm going to, I had to reschedule Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So that will be on Saturday, July the 20th. And then I've got to pick another movie for the 21st. And also to let you know that August is going to be Argento August. We're going to not have the regularly scheduled programming. August is going to be all about Dario Argento and his films. So We'll have watch alongs, we'll have discussions, we'll have all of that, but it will all pertain to Dario Argento. And also, we're going to have Fulci Fall in October, thanks to uh, someone bringing that up in the stream last night. I think it was last night. Um, and so we will have Fulci Fall in October, and we'll be talking about all things Lucio Fulci, which soon I'm going to be talking about Argento and Fulci here on tonight's Apples and Oranges. I also want to remind everybody that I do have both a Discord and a Patreon for Deadites on Deck. Um, and the Discord is free for anybody to join. Um, in fact, there are some people that have been on talking about all sorts of things. And enjoying themselves immensely, I think. Um, so I'm happy about that. Um, there are all kinds of topics that you can talk about. Um, and I'm also going to put the Discord link because I finally remembered how the quickest way to get that is. I'm going to put that in the chat for you guys and gals right now. And I also put the link for Patreon. And I'll talk a little bit about the tiers. There are only 3 tiers for the Patreon. I didn't really want to make it all that elaborate or expensive because the highest tier is $25. Okay. So the 3 tiers again, there's the Seller Deadite tier for $5 a month. This is for your average fan of Deadites on Deck. What's included with that? New members will be recognized via a monthly video shout out. And you also get the ability to vote on upcoming watch alongs and live stream topics. This can include any 2 movies per month that you would like to see me review. Okay. And if you would like to come on live on the stream when I review your movies, feel free. So basically, you can pick from that ability to vote on upcoming watch alongs or the ability to vote on live stream topics, or you can tell me a couple of movies that you'd like to see me review. So I'll add that in there. That's all for $5 a month. The Henrietta Deadite tier is $10 a month. This is for the ultra fan of Deadites on Deck. You'll get all the perks from the first tier. Plus, you'll get access to exclusive commentaries not available for general consumption. That means if I do a commentary and or watch along and I make it available only to Patreon members of the Henrietta Deadite tier, then if you're paying the $10 a month, you will be able to view that watch along. Also, you will get live members only chats and an exclusive Evil Dead Chick button. Okay, so the third and last tier is the Groovy tier. This is for hardcore Deadites for the hardcore Deadites on Deck fan. This tier includes all the perks of the previous 2 tiers, plus the ability to request certain movies for the Deadites on Deck team to do watch-alongs for, and your choice of either an official Deadites on Deck t-shirt, hat, or mouse pad. So that is all the tiers for Patreon. And the last thing I want to talk about before we get into the movies and the discussion of Argento and Fulci is that there is now a sister channel to Deadites on Deck called Waiting on Woodstock. We don't currently have any content up there yet, but Candace and I are soon going to be putting some content on there. I put the link for Waiting on Woodstock in the chat as well. But most of the content, in fact, the majority of the content on Waiting on Woodstock will be pre recorded things that me and Candace do. Now, occasionally there will be live watch alongs for 1960s movies or more modern movies that take place in the 60s. So those will be live. We'll have those occasionally. Also, there may be some Q&As and different things like that that will show up from time to time that are live streams. But because I do basically a live stream every night through the week, especially, um, so much of that is live streams that I simply would not have the time to do, daily live streams on the Waiting on Woodstock channel as well. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with Argento versus Fulci, or Argento and Fulci. So, for some people, Lucio Fulci and Dario Argento can be as different as night and day. Argento was primarily known as a giallo director. And for those of you that don't know what a giallo is, let me give you a little breakdown on giallos. So, a giallo is basically a genre of murder mystery fiction that often contains a slasher thriller, um, psychological horror, psychological thriller. It can include sexploitation and less frequently supernatural horror elements. And it's called Giallo because I believe Giallo is a yellow color. And there used to be these kind of lurid paperback books that had all these gory murders in them, and they were murder mysteries and stuff, and they were yellow. So hence the term Giallo. And so that carried over into the film versions as well. So Argento is known mostly for those types of films. Fulci um, got, I feel like Fulci made a name for himself because of his gore films, his zombie films, his Living Dead type of films. Anytime these very dangerous people come back from the dead, bad things happen. Very gory, bad things happen in a Fulci film. A similarity that I wanted to bring up between Argento and Fulci is that their more modern films kind of were uneven. Some of them were really, really bad, and some of them were decent. Hey, Gory Tiger. So, hey, David. Um, have you in my ears on the subway? Happy to catch the stream on my commute. It's been too long. Well, David, I'm glad to see you back in here. I appreciate it. And you picked a great night to tune in if you're into Argento or Fulci or both of those guys. Um, so welcome back, David. I appreciate you coming in. Um, so we're just going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to compare one of Argento's films with one of one of Fulci's films, and I'm trying to match them up with two movies from each director, or one movie from each director that are kind of close in time period. Okay, so the Bird with the Crystal Plumage is the first Argento one I want to talk about, and that is from 1970. And then the Fulci movie I want to talk about is Don't Torture a Duckling. This is Steve's copy. I don't have a Blu-ray copy of Don't Torture a Duckling, sadly. This is from 1972. So there were a couple of years in between The Bird with the Crystal Plumage and don't torture a duckling. Now, um, this is Argento's first film. This is the debut of Argento, the bird with the crystal plumages. Um, and Argento was known as the Italian Hitchcock, and I could definitely see that. This movie stars Tony Masante and Susie Kendall from Circus of Fear and Torso. This is basically a suspense thriller. Now, it has giallo elements in it, there's no doubt. And suspense thrillers are included in giallos. So it's about an American writer in Rome who witnesses and is helpless to stop. And I love the way Argento sets this up, because basically the American writer is on one side of the glass and he's seeing what looks like a woman being stabbed to death on the other side of the glass, but there's no way he can get to her. So he's watching helplessly as this woman's being murdered. Um, so this movie kind of kicks it off with a bang, starts off with a bang. Um, And I absolutely love this. For early Argento, I really, really enjoyed The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. It has a lot of the hallmarks of Argento's work, stuff that he would carry on into later uh, cinematic. I mean, Argento to me is a cinematic genius. Now, some people will say that Argento's work doesn't make a lot of sense. Um, I would say it makes sense. Some things aren't always logical, but I've learned over the years of watching a lot of horror films that you don't necessarily need logic in a horror film to enjoy it. The thing that I think that Argento is an expert at is creating this kind of pulse pounding suspense, this uh, foreboding dread, that you know something bad's going to happen in an Argento film when you start the film. You just do. Um, it's that very dark undercurrent that you're like, oh my gosh, something bad is going to happen. I don't know when. I don't necessarily know where, but it's going to happen. And that's another thing that Argento shares with Hitchcock, because Hitchcock was very good at, and I've heard this being described, and it's perfect for Hitchcock. It's perfect for Argento. That Hitchcock would show you a stadium full of people, for instance, and he would show all the people at this sporting event or whatever. And then he would show underneath the seating, there's a ticking time bomb. Then he'd go back to the audience. And then he would go back to the ticking time bomb. And he'd go back and forth, and you're just like, stop, I can't take this. When is it gonna explode? Not gonna explode? What's gonna happen? How many people are gonna die? How horrific is this gonna be? So Argento does that as well. He will show you little bits and pieces of the killer. For instance, he'll show you the black gloves. He may show a trench coat. He may show you something but not quite show you something, as I'll talk about in Deep Red here in a little bit. You may think that you're seeing one thing, it turns out to be something totally different. And you're like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? Okay. David, you say Tony came to the film forum for a screening and did a very long talk back. He was very funny, approachable, although I don't think he and Dario got along. It seems like that I had heard that he and Dario didn't get along either, David. And I don't think Dario got along with actors and actresses very much anyway. I think I had heard his daughter Aja say in an interview a long time ago that he told his daughter, he said, "You don't want to be an actress or don't want to be an actor. Actors are shit." So I don't think he thought too highly of any actors or actresses, really. I'm not saying he treated them badly. Now, Fulci has been known to treat actresses primarily very, very badly. And he would also scream at his crew. Um, and Fulci also had a very tragic past that may have contributed to the way he treated people, um, even down to the way he directed his films, as well, and the subject matter that he used in films. Hey, Victor. Victor says Argento sets a foreboding mood and Fulci stabs you in the eye. Yeah, that's right, Victor. You say both are great styles. Exactly. And that's why I didn't really consider this a debate thing, just mainly a discussion on the different styles that each of these directors use. Um, I was hoping, that there might be somebody that said, not necessarily that they hated one or the other, but maybe that they preferred one style over the other. So if you guys and gals that are in the chat, if one of you or more of you have have a favorite out of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, whether it's Argento or Fulci. Okay, so Fulci's film from Fulci's film from 1972, which was 2 years after The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, is Don't Torture a Duckling. Now, I ain't even gonna lie. Don't Torture a Duckling, I enjoy very, very much. Um, and I love the mystery of it. I did not have the killer figured out the first time I saw this. I'll admit that I did not. Um, a lot of Jallos I didn't figure out who the killer was the first time out. Because a lot of this was early in my movie watching career, and I didn't pay as much attention as I do now. I didn't pick up on all the visual cues that were around and kind of sprinkled throughout these films. Um, but I don't begrudge anybody that can pick them out really quickly. There's some people that can pick out the killer at the drop of a hat, just a few minutes into the film, and they know who the killer is. Um, I admire that. I don't know if I could enjoy the movies as much if I could do that. But nowadays, when I watch a slasher film or something like that, I'm like, yeah, I think I know who the killer is. And usually about 8 or 9 times out of 10, I'm right. But in the early days of watching these films, I was like, yeah, I don't, I couldn't pick them out, you know. So I didn't know who the killer was with Don't Torture a Duckling. I was as surprised as anybody. Now, I'm not going to give it away in case there are some of you in here or some of you that might watch this later, that haven't seen all these Argento films or these Fulci films. Um, David, you say, oddly enough, I thought Dario's performance in Vortex was amazing, which is weird considering his disdain towards actors. Yeah, I don't think I've seen Vortex. I'm going to have to ask Steve about that, David, and see if I can pick his brain to see if he's got Vortex somewhere. He may have even watched it. It may have been one that he watched, and I just for whatever reason didn't watch it. Um, but Don't Torture a Duckling has some very serious subject matter because the killer in this film is mostly killing children. They're killing kids in this, um, young boys, in fact. Uh, so, of course, this is like a small village, and the locals are wanting to put the blame on a local witch, uh, Makiara. I don't know. I'm probably massacring that name, but that's Florinda Balkan from A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, which is another Fulci film. Not one I'm going to talk about tonight, but um, another Fulci film. Hey, Randy. Randy, you say, I heard Argento is popular in Italy. Fulci, not so much, more of a cult favorite among horror fans. I believe you're correct, Randy. I feel like that Argento is more respected in his home country of Italy than Fulci ever was, alive or dead. Fulci just didn't, and that's kind of sad. I wish that Fulci could have gotten the respect and the accolades that Argento has got. But Fulci, as you said, he's more of a cult favorite among horror fans. So he kind of got his celebration that way. But it's just sad that in his home country, he was not as well respected as Argento. Um, so we also have Barbara Boucher in this. And for you guys that, well, there might be some ladies too. For you guys that like to look at the female form that is Barbara Boucher, then you will get to see that in this. Steve likes looking at Barbara Boucher. No, I ain't gonna lie. He loves looking at Barbara Boucher. He's a big fan of Barbara Boucher, so much in fact that a few years back we went to a Cinema Wasteland convention and Barbara Boucher was there and we both met her. Steve got her to sign something, and beware, 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 folks, of these silver Sharpies. Because if you aren't careful, those silver Sharpies smear worse than any other Sharpie in the history of Sharpies, because Steve has had two things signed with silver Sharpies that got smeared. Um, One was Barbara Steele, and he did. I don't think he bothered getting anything else for her to sign, but her signature got smeared. That was a silver Sharpie, and Barbara Boucher. But he went and got something else, and Barbara Boucher signed it for him. So just beware of the silver Sharpies at conventions. Um, this does have a lot of violence in it, um, and does uh, reflect on the Catholic Church quite poorly. Fulci was not a fan of the Catholic Church, folks. We also had themes of child murder, pedophilia, all kinds of unsavory subject matter in this. Um, a lot of people regard this as Fulci's greatest film. Even going so far, since we're talking about Argento too, that it rivals the best of his close rival, Dario Argento. Now, if you guys have a opinion one way or the other, please feel free to put it in the chat. Um, but I really, really enjoyed Don't Torture a Duckling. This was not one that was like Zombie or City of the Living Dead, which both of those I'm going to talk about tonight. It was a whole different ball of wax as far as a Fulci film. But I feel like it's really well made. Beware of the subject matter. Sensitive people might not be interested in watching this with the themes I just outlined. Um, but also, I wanted to bring up the ending to the, or near the ending of this film. This has one of the greatest deaths I've ever seen put on film. It's outrageous, but it's great too. In and of itself, it's great despite and because of the outrageousness of it. And for those of you that have seen Don't Torture a Duckling, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's Bird with the Crystal Plumage and Don't Torture a Duckling. Okay, so the next two I want to talk about. Now, I don't think Steve's too great of a fan of the next Argento film I'm going to talk about. But I'm going to be talking about Argento's Four Flies on Gray Velvet from 1971 and Fulci's The Psychic from 1977. So, Four Flies on Gray Velvet, I wasn't like, I didn't really get into Four Flies on Gray Velvet the first time I watched it. I think I wasn't paying enough attention to it. It concerns um, a musician in this rock band um, who is basically being, haunted by something he did in his past. Hey, Blissful, how's the weather? I was hoping you'd get to tune in. I hope y'all are not having too bad of weather right now. Um, so he's getting strange phone calls. Somebody is following him around, and you don't know if they're planning on killing him or what. Um, we also have Miss Mimsy Farmer in here, uh, as oh shoot, um, I'm sorry, guys and gals, I was forgetting who the other woman was in here. So the musician I'm talking about is a drummer, played by Michael Brandon. So, like I said, he's being haunted by something he did in his past. He accidentally killed a stranger. Okay. Um, so we've got blackmail, we've got paranoia, we've got grisly murders dumped in there as well. Uh, that it does climax with arguably the most visually impressive sequence in any of Argento's movies. And I would have to agree with that. Mimsy Farmer is also in this, and Bud Spencer. Um, but if I remember correctly, this guy's girlfriend is very um, not kind to the drummer, right? Um, this is also the final film in his legendary Animal trilogy, and it's long been the least seen of his Giallo classics. Hopefully, this release from Severin has changed that a little bit because I mean, I think it's a really good film. It's a really tight knit, suspenseful film. A lot of the uh, hallmarks of our Argento film, even though this was an early one um, from 1971, I still think all those hallmarks of an Argento film are in there. Um, I really, really like everything about this film now, essentially. Um, Somebody's messaging me on Facebook. Oh, actually, it's Blissful. Blissful, I promise I'll get back with you on that. Um, let's see. David, you say, I feel Fulci had a bit of a mean streak towards women, but Dario is different. Yes, he loves showing off the female form, but he often put women in empowering situations. Am I off base with that? No, I am completely I completely feel the same way, David. Because he would, whereas Fulci would stick women in the most degrading situations ever. Argento a lot of times would put them in those empowering positions. I'm going to talk about Deep Red here in a little bit, but I think what he did with Daria Nicolodi, who he was married to for a while, Even though they had a very tumultuous relationship, I think some of the roles that he put her in, he allowed her to be empowered. Um, and I love that. I absolutely love that because I thought Daria Nicolodi was a beautiful woman, but she was a strong woman. And I don't think Argento ever let her be weak in a film. He never put her in a weak character role. And y'all can feel free to disagree with me on that if you think otherwise. But no, David, I don't think you're at all off base with that. So, Four Flies on Gray Velvet, it took me a little bit to really appreciate this film to its fullest capacity. Um, but I urge people, if you can find it for a free copy, if you don't already own it, um, and give this one a watch. I think a lot of you that are in here tonight will enjoy this film. Um, Also, if it's been a while, like it had been a little bit for me, in watching Four Flies on Gray Velvet, and then I got this copy from Severin. Well, not directly from Severin. I didn't like request it or anything. Um, but a friend bought several copies, and then I bought this off of him. Um, so uh, now, now I'm trying to get the little plastic case closed. I love these protectors, but sometimes when you open them up to slide the disc out or whatever, it's a pain to get it fastened back up. Victor, you say City of the Living Dead is my favorite Fulci film. I have to think a bit on my favorite Argento, maybe Deep Red. Yeah, that's I think Deep Red is probably my favorite Argento, followed very closely by Tenebrae, which I'm also going to talk about tonight. But Tenebrae is a little uneven with fans, I think. Not a lot of people like it as nearly as much as I do. A lot of people prefer Suspiria over Tenebrae, which is another one I'm going to talk about tonight. Okay, so the psychic, I did not realize that me and Steve had seen the psychic prior to me watching it or buying it and watching it a second time. I was like, I totally didn't remember watching the psychic. He's like, yeah, Dana, we watched the psychic. Um, X-ray, you say Tenebrae has the best. I'm sorry, guys and gals, I can't talk tonight. Tenebrae has the best OST of Argento's catalog. I just love everything about Tenebrae, but I promise I'll get to that one here in a little bit. But the psychic, um, it's been called amazing. It's been called a classic. Not words that people would usually attribute to Fulci. There's probably a lot of words that people would attribute to Fulci, but amazing and classic, especially classic, I don't hear a lot of when people are talking about Fulci. Actually, you say, I like how it's supposed to be in the future, LOL. uh, so, this film remains writer and director Lucio Fulci's ultimate giallo. So, this one's considered a giallo. Okay. So Jennifer O'Neill from Scanner stars in this, stars as a woman tormented by violent visions of past slayings. Or are they premonitions of murder still to come? Um, so this is described also as a rare, rewarding experience, co-written by Fulci and Dardano Sacchetti. It was originally titled Murder to the Tune of Seven Black Notes, which honestly, folks, those long titles is something that bothers me. I know they're trying to be um, unique and maybe a little artsy, but I would prefer the shorter titles, like The Psychic, that works for me. Deep Red works for me. Tenebrae works for me. That kind of, even Don't Torture a Duckling works for me. I don't really need all these super long titles. So I'm glad that we simply get the version referred to as The Psychic. Um, you know, that's a mouthful to even read out. Murder to the Tune of the Seven Black Notes. So this has some great kills in it. It has some great imagery in it. Um, I think it's a very good Fulci. It's a little bit of a slow burn. Some people may unfortunately be bored by it. But things do happen in it. And in all honesty, it's a very well made Fulci film. Okay. Very well made. And that's not something I can say about a lot of Fulci films. They may have great gore in them, they may have those great set pieces, but usually they're not nearly as stylish and well made as Argento's films. But The Psyche, yeah, that's more on an Argento level for me. So I really, really enjoyed going back and rewatching this, and I would definitely recommend it if you haven't seen The Psyche. X-ray, you say, the long titles only sound good in baklava speak. And you also say The Psychic is Fulci's classiest horror film. I would agree with that. Definitely a classy film. So that's Four Flies on Gray Velvet and The Psychic. All right. So the next two, I promised you I was going to be talking about Deep Red and Zombie. I'm going to be talking or discussing Deep Red from 1975. This one was a year before I was born in 76. And Zombie from 1979 with that classic tagline, "We are going to eat you." So let's talk about Deep Red first, shall we? This is, I think, definitively my favorite Argento film of all time, with Tenebrae, which I'm going to talk about soon, running a close second. Okay. Um, I love everything about Deep Red. And actually, me and Steve watched Deep Red again here recently. And I really enjoyed sitting down with my husband and watching this classic Argento Giallo. So Marcus Daly played by David Hemmings, who I always, when I look at a young David Hemmings, I always think Paul McCartney. And Steve said, "Well, maybe because he's British." I said, "Well, maybe, I don't know." And then Steve said, "Maybe because of the hair." But I look at young David Hemmings and I say Paul McCartney. Um, so Marcus Daly, or Mark Daly, he's talking to his friend Carlo, who is a pianist in a local club or restaurant or whatever. And he's also sadly an alcoholic. So he's talking to Carlo. Carlo is three sheets to the wind. Um, and they're just, talking back and forth. And all of a sudden, Mark hears a scream and breaking glass. He looks up to see a woman's head and upper body coming through the window, and then the killer is pulling her back. Now, he cannot see the killer because the killer has this hat on that darkens the face. They have a trench coat on. They have the black gloves on that are a hallmark of any Giallo movie. And so he quickly runs up into the apartment building where he also has an apartment, and enters his neighbor Olga's apartment. And sadly, Olga's no more. Now, before that, we see Olga, who is, I guess you would call her a psychic, a medium, whatever. And the killer is in her audience and she has a very violent reaction to this person. And before that, even, we see and we hear the very ominous but childlike la 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 la. I can't do it all the way, but you get the idea. It's like a sing song, children's nursery rhyme kind of deal, right? And you see someone get stabbed very viciously. Okay. So we have all of this before we even get to the part where Mark sees Olga being killed. Um, X-Ray, you say Deep Red would be my favorite Argento movie if Suspiria didn't exist. Yeah, and a lot of people I think are shocked, X-Ray, that I don't put Suspiria right at the top or don't put it second after Deep Red. I love Suspiria, but Suspiria is probably third on my list of Argento films. Actually, you also say this one has a lot of great little music cues, like when Mark runs to the psychic as she's being killed, and when he investigates that abandoned house. Exactly. Yeah. The music is spot on this movie. And I also agree, Daria Nicolodi was really beautiful in this. She was probably, this was, for me, was at her most beautiful. Um, and she's sassy and I love her. You know, talk about empowering women in a film. I really think that Argento let her be empowered in this. He let that character be empowered. Um, so basically, from then on out, Mark becomes a detective. Because when he ran up to Olga's apartment and he's, going through everything and there's artwork on the wall and stuff like that. And I don't want to give something away, but there's going to be something as he's going through the apartment that it's going to go by really fast. And you're going to think it's one way, but it's going to turn out a little bit different. That's all I'm going to say about that. For those of you that have seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those that haven't, man, I urge you to, again, don't go out and buy this movie, okay? Don't go out and buy it just because Dana says it is a fantastic movie. Um, Try to find a for free version first or borrow one from a friend or family member that might have it. And you're probably thinking, gee, Dana, that's a stretch. Friends and family members of mine don't have those kind of movies. But you'd be surprised because for years, I thought I would never find anybody that liked these movies. I thought I was doomed to be, kind of in my little hometown. There weren't people watching Argento movies and Fulci movies and uh, my parents had seen Lucio Fulci's City of the Living Dead under the title Gates of Hell at a drive-in a long, long time ago. And many of y'all have heard me tell this story before, about my dad talking about um, this movie where a guy gets his head drilled and there's flying maggots and girls puking up what I call her entire intestinal tract. I thought I was missing the greatest horror movie ever made. So I was pleased as punch when I finally was able to rent The Gates of Hell for the first time. And it was like one of those big box deals it was like, oh, it's like the holy grail of movies. You could have had a golden light around it, right? So, but I'll get to City of the Living Dead here in just a little bit. David, you want to know which cut of Profondo Rosso do I prefer? You know, I think probably the easiest way for me to describe it is I like the version that's got everything in it, even the funny stuff and the um, even the stuff that doesn't have any English dub to it, that you have to read the subtitles. I want everything in it because to me that's the ultimate version, and also the version that has those little, man against woman things. I don't know, I thought it was kind of cute. I don't think Steve cares for all that as much, but I like the whole enchilada when it comes to deep red. So the cut, I don't know if that is that considered the director's cut, David. I wasn't sure if it was or not. I know that's the longer cut. So there is the 127-minute Italian version and the 105-minute export version. So I probably like a combination of those two, David. If I hope that's a good answer for you. Um, oh, that's okay, Chris. You say, "Hey, Dana, sorry I'm late getting in here. I had a few things I had to do around the house, cleaning up after the dogs and all that." LOL. Oh, I totally understand about that, Chris. It is perfectly fine. I'm glad to have you in here now. But yeah, deep red for me is pretty much the ultimate Jallo for me. I absolutely love this film. Um, I would give this thing 10 deadites out of 10 if I could, you know. I guess I could, you know. A deadites rating scale was something I came up with. So deep red for me would kind of be off the scale. It'd be kind of like Evil Dead. It'd be off the scale. So give it an infinite number of deadites, right? Okay. So now we can talk about Fulci's Zombie, which to me, other than Romero's original zombie films, this little gem right here is the ultimate zombie film. After the Romero stuff, the early stuff from Romero, this is the ultimate zombie film for me. It runs a very close second to um, Romero's original zombie trilogy. Okay. And that means Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, or I mean, Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, right? I love this movie. I absolutely love it. This guy right here, the what I call the hero zombie, that's fantastic. This is the one that raises up, has the worms falling out of its eye, and he's a really quick zombie. He just goes, and you're dead at that point when this guy gets you, right? So I'd never really seen anything like that because Romero's zombies were, for the most part, slow moving zombies. This zombie started out slow moving, and then all of a sudden, he's on you like uh, he, he's just on you. He's like way back here, and then all of a sudden, he's got a hold of you, right? So, this also has a fantastic eye splintering scene. If that can be called fantastic, which as a horror fan, as a gore fan, and all of that, it's fantastic to me. And it is literally a splinter of wood piercing an eye, and it's absolutely fantastic. Unless that kind of stuff makes you ill, which I'm sorry I'm discussing it, but it's fantastic. For a fan of these types of movies, you're like, oh my gosh, is Fulci gonna go that far with this? Yes, he does. He most certainly does with this one. Um, so this is just a grab bag, a carnival um, piece of cotton candy. Okay, imagine that. Okay, you know how good carnival cotton candy is? That's how good this movie is. Okay, and not only do you have all these cool zombies, just in general, but it's the only movie I've ever seen, horror or otherwise, because I guess there could be comedy films with zombies, and there are nowadays. Um, a zombie fighting a shark underwater. I kid you not. It's so great that I believe Fright Rags made a shirt of it. For those of you that got that shirt, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And yeah, so basic story of this As Tisa Farrow's character wants to go to the island of Matul because her father has been there, um, working with Richard Johnson, his character, and she hasn't heard from her father in a while. We've seen near the beginning of the film that this boat comes into New York Harbor. These cops go on board to check things out and are attacked by zombies. Um, Before that, we had seen Richard Johnson shooting a sheet clad person in the head, and then the boat can leave now. Uh, so this is the same boat that ends up in the New York Harbor. Music was done by Fabio Frizzi, who is incredible. He's incredible. Goblin's also incredible. Goblin did a lot of music for Argento. I believe Fabio Frizzi did some for Argento as well. So, um, and this also has Ian McCullough in it. And let me tell you guys and gals, I met Ian McCullough about a year or two ago, and he was such a gentleman. And I was just gushing. I was telling him how much I loved him in Zombie. And he was very humble. He was like, I didn't think I did very well or anything. I was like, no, 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 you were fantastic. And so I got a picture with him and got a mini poster, and he signed it. And I talked to him for a little bit, and it was a fantastic experience. It was one of those experiences you just like to share because it was so good. Um, Picture. He said, "Zombie is as good as Carnival cotton candy." That should be a blurb on the slipcover. Hey, if somebody wanted to use it on a future release of Zombie, I'd say have at it. Put my blurb on that slipcover. I don't think anybody's ever going to give me that opportunity, but I'd take them up on it if they wanted to. So, um, yeah, Zombie's fantastic. There's no two ways about it. If you love gore films, if you love zombie films, if you love Fulci, this one's a no-brainer, folks. Okay, so um, that was Deep Red and Zombie. All right, so the next two that I'm going to talk about are Suspiria, which is Argento's offering, from 1977. You can see some of that grotesquely beautiful uh, set pieces, or, one of the grotesquely beautiful set pieces from Argento right there on the cover. And I'm also going to be discussing City of the Living Dead, aka The Gates of Hell from 1980. So let's just kick it off and talk about Suspiria first. Um, Suspiria is like, this is a fun film. There is no doubt about it. Even though it's third on my list of favorite Argento films behind Deep Red and Tenebrae, I still love it. Just because it's third doesn't mean I love it any less, really, than the other two films. So this is part of the Three Mothers set of films that Argento did. So Jessica Harper, I love Jessica Harper in this, from Phantom of the Paradise, Pennies from Heaven. She stars in this tale of a young student who uncovers a dark and horrific secret or secrets within the walls of a famous German dance academy. Um, It is one of the most powerful and hallucinatory nightmares ever captured on celluloid. Dario Argento's Suspiria comes to home video from Synapse Films. This is Synapse Films' release. And this is the 4K restoration from the original uncut, uncensored 35 millimeter Italian camera negative. Um, and beautiful this film is. As gory and grotesque as the murders are in this film, it is definitely beautiful. The colors pop in this, especially on 4K, the colors pop. So this death, for instance, here, we have a woman that gets killed. A noose is slipped around her neck. She falls through stained glass, and then she's just hanging there with blood dripping. It's, if I dare I say it, it's fantastic. Okay. And this is what Argento is a master of. He's a master of these grotesquely beautiful set pieces. And I call them grotesquely beautiful because even though they are so gory and grotesque, you literally cannot look away from them. You're looking at, or at least I look at them like almost like a painting in an art museum. Okay. As gory as they are, as bizarre and grotesque as they are, I'm like, wow, just wow. That is cinematic genius, what he does in these films. And what he does to the nth degree in Suspiria. Because he pulls no punches in this film. This film does not play around at all. Um, David, perfect. That is spot on. You say Suspiria benefits heavily from a good sound system. It's a hard rock concert, and you are absolutely 100% correct on that, David. It is. It's literally like going to the greatest band ever or the greatest group of bands ever, having a balls to the wall rock concert to end all rock concerts. That is what Suspiria is. 100%. Um, and so I will not say anything bad about Suspiria because I simply cannot find anything wrong with this film. Um, if anybody does find something that they think is wrong with this film, please share. Please share. I would love to hear it. I will not mock you or anything. I really want to know what people think of these films, especially if they don't have the same uh, respect, maybe, or enthusiasm for these films. Maybe enthusiasm is a better word for them. But definitely Suspiria is one for the record books as far as, Giallo fans and horror fans and all that. So the next one, City of the Living Dead, aka The Gates of Hell. Yes, this is a gory, balls to the wall zombie fest, basically. So it starts out with Father Thomas, who, I don't know what's wrong with Father Thomas, but evidently somebody pissed in his cornflakes that morning. I don't know. But he hangs himself. And when he hangs himself, the gates of hell are opened in this little town of Dunwich, or little village of Dunwich, and the dead start coming back to life, including old Father Thomas. That primarily when women see Father Thomas, when he flashes in front of them after he's hanged himself, their eyes start to bleed, and then they start to vomit up their entire intestinal tract. And if you don't believe me, you've got to see this film, okay? We also have zombies reaching out to the back of people's heads and pulling their brains out, right? So this movie has it all. It's fun, it's wacky, it doesn't always make sense, it's gory, but I can almost guarantee you're going to have a hell of a good time when you watch it. And that's all, that's all you really need. Sometimes you just need a movie that is that crazy to make you forget about the stress of the day. And City of the Living Dead will definitely do that, guys and gals. You don't have to think too hard about this movie. Argento's movies are a little bit more cerebral. I ain't gonna lie about that. But if you want something that you definitely don't have to use hardly any brain power to watch, and this is no slight on Fulci. I'm just saying if you want to have a good time and not have to think about anything primarily, then watch a Fulci film. If you want something a little more cerebral, Argento's going to be in your wheelhouse that day, okay? So, yeah, great little, zombie film, great little gore film. Um, I can't say enough good things about City of the Living Dead. It's just, and years and years later, after my own parents saw this at a drive-in, I got to see it at a drive-in with one caveat. And that caveat was that I did not get to see the Bob head drill scene at the drive-in. Murder Rock isn't cerebral. It might be, Victor. It might be. It might be. But for the most part, I feel like Argentos are, again, that's no slight on Fulci. But again, I think a lot more of Argento stuff is more cerebral than Fulci stuff, just in general, just overall. Um, but the version of City of the Living Dead that me and Steve got to watch, I believe at the Skyline Drive-In up in Indiana, whatever print they got showed the same scene of the car pulling up in front of the funeral home twice instead of us getting the Bob head drill scene. I was so disappointed. But at least I can say that I saw City of the Living Dead at the drive-in, though. Okay, so moving right along, we're going to talk about my second favorite Argento movie. Whoops, which I'm going to drop it, which is Tenebrae. Absolutely love, love, love this film. See the black gloves? There's the Jello hallmark there. And we're going to talk about Fulci's The Beyond. Okay. Well, first of all, Tenebrae. Tenebrae is, you know how when Sam Raimi talked about the Evil Dead and Erwin Shapiro wanted to put out their movie, but he told them they literally needed to have the blood running down the screen. And they pretty much made good on that. Well, Tenebrae does the same thing, only Argento style, right? And again, if you don't believe me, then watch Tenebrae, right? So there's an American mystery author. See, that's what Argento does a lot of times too. He has an outsider who ends up in Italy, or in the case of Suspiria, ends up in Germany, right? But in this case, American mystery author Peter Neal, played by Anthony Franciosa from Death Wish 2, he comes to Rome to promote his newest novel, Tenebrae, about a razor wielding psychopath. But a razor wielding psychopath is on the loose. He's taunting Peter Neal and murdering those around him in gruesome fashion, just like the character in his novel. So, as the mystery surrounding the killing spirals out of control, Neil investigates the crimes on his own, leading to a mind bending, genre twisting conclusion that will leave you breathless. John Saxon is also in this as well, and Dario Nicolodi. And this also does have beautiful cinematography. It's absolutely stunning in this. And if you get this release from Synapse Films, you get the alternate US theatrical cut unsane, which honestly, guys and gals, I wouldn't recommend that one. If you want to get the uh full full course meal with Tenebrae, definitely watch the Tenebrae version and not the unsane version. David, you say so. Tenebrae was supposed to take place after something like a virus decimated the population. I've seen this film 1,000 times and don't really see it. I do like the brightly lit whites, though. I did not realize that, David. Yeah, I don't see that either. I definitely don't see that. There's too many people in it for that to be the case. I think. I had never heard that. That's very interesting. Um, but the other thing I like about this movie is that it's almost like a David Lynch film or like episodes of David Lynch's Twin Peaks. Nothing is ever what it first appears to be. And that's all I'm going to say. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But near the end of this film, we have one of the most fantastic death scenes, very gory. Literally, the walls are painted with someone's blood. And again, that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to give this away if you have not seen Tenebrae. But I urge you to, if you can find a for free version of this, definitely check out Dario Argento's Tenebrae. I don't think you'll be sorry though, at all watching it. Okay, so moving on to Fulci's The Beyond, which I also love so much, starring Catriona, can't talk tonight, Catriona McCall and David Warbeck. Um, this is described as Lucio Fulci's masterpiece of face-chewing spider action. It does. It does have that, including one spider pulling this guy's tongue out. Milky-eyed psychics, face-melting embalming fluid, and rotted flesh-crazed zombies. Yes, yes, and yes. You get all of that in this film. So we have Catriona McCall, who has inherited a old hotel in Louisiana, who we've seen in the earlier sequences. There was a painter named Spike who was put upon by the locals who called him a warlock, and they basically tortured him and then sealed him up in the wall of this hotel. And Spike doesn't take too kindly to that, as no one really would, and comes back and causes all kinds of havoc when he comes back from the dead or back from the beyond, which is the title of this film. This has one of the greatest shotgun blasts to the head, and the shotgun blast to the head happens to a young girl, not like a itty bitty girl, but it's a young girl. And all of a sudden, you see this gigantic hole in her head, which is just, I'm sorry, but it's just fantastic. You also have the embalming fluid when it goes on someone's face. When the red stuff starts running, when the face gets disintegrated, I always thought it looked like a red icy. If you've seen this movie and you think, what in the heck are you talking about, Dana? Let me know, what you think of the red uh, embalming fluid, and after it disintegrates on the face, it becomes all red and frothy. To me, it looks like a cherry icy. But I have a lot of fun every time I watch The Beyond. I could watch this. I feel like I could watch both this and Tenebrae and many of these others. I could watch them every day of the week and never get tired of them because I always discover something new to like every time I watch them. And I think The Beyond is one of Fulci's best. Like, once I watched City of the Living Dead, aka Gates of Hell, I became a Fulciite. I wanted to watch everything that Fulci did. Now, as I said at the beginning of this stream, both Argento and Fulci had pretty uneven careers later on. And Fulci died in, I believe, 1996, and Argento's still trudging along. So Argento still is making movies from time to time. He's in other people's movies from time to time. He's not a spring chicken, but he's still around and he's still creating. Whereas unfortunately, Fulci can't still do that. So we'll move right along. We're almost through these, guys and gals. To our next two films. Um, oh, you know what? I accidentally pulled the wrong film for this. Holy cow. Yeah. I accidentally pulled a Lamberto Bava film. So I'm going to have to pull another. Forgive me 1 second. That's what I get for going too fast. I don't know why I thought this one was Argento. But let me go away for just a second here. I will be right back. Sorry, gang. I will cover A Blade in the Dark at some point, but not now because I'm talking about Argento and Fulci. So now I'm going to talk about Dario Argento's opera and Fulci's The House by the Cemetery. Okay. Um, so first off, Argento's opera. Now, this is a film that kind of growed on me after a while. The first time I saw it, I didn't much care for it. However, something that I did like the first time I watched it was the killer who constantly makes this young woman watch as he kills those around her. And the way that he ends up doing this is by kind of knocking her out and taping needles underneath her eyes so she cannot close her eyes. She is forced to see the killer as he's murdering people around her, he or she. Um, so it's kind of like a Phantom of the Opera thing with a Jallo twist, which, like I said, I have come to appreciate a lot more over the years. Like I said, when I first saw this, wasn't a big fan of it. I'm a much bigger fan of opera now than I ever was in the beginning. This does have some great kills, very much a Jallo. And like I said, I love what the killer does. He basically is torturing this girl. In fact, she does try to close her eyes at some points, and the little needles kind of prick her eyelids. So that is a very unique sort of torture device by doing that. It's very simple, but it's cool too. So Um, Opera, I would definitely recommend now. In years past, probably not so much. I don't know why I thought it was kind of dull, kind of slow, Um, but opera it is still, a fantastic film. Um, I just didn't realize it took me a little bit to realize the genius of opera. So, I can probably give you a little more background. So, we've got a young opera singer, Betty, who takes over the leading role in an avant garde presentation of Macbeth. Uh, when she does that, she triggers the madness of a crazed fan who repeatedly forces her to watch the brutal murders of her friends. Um, and she also has a reoccurring childhood nightmare that may hold the key to the identity of this psychopath. Um, so that is opera. Um, David, you say I already had opera, so picked Inferno. Dana, give opera a second chance. I really love it. Yeah, I have gave it a second, maybe third chance, and I love it a lot more now, David. I think I don't know what the problem was with me the first time I watched opera, but maybe I just wasn't in the right mindset for it or something. But I do very much appreciate it now. Okay, so now on to Fulci's The House by the Cemetery, which also stars Catriona McCall. Okay, more gore, balls to the wall gore, a ghost story. Yeah, we've got it all in this one, and I absolutely love House by the Cemetery. I feel like this was Fulci at the top of his game as well. So we have a young family that moves from their New York City apartment to a spacious new home in New England. Uh, but this is a house where the previous owner was the deranged Dr. Freudstein, whose monstrous human experiments have left a legacy of bloody mayhem. Now, someone or something is alive in the basement, and Home Sweet Home is about to become a horrific hell on earth. Uh, Paolo Malco from New York Ripper is also in this. Ania Pironi from Tenebrae. Carlo DeMeo from City of the Living Dead. And Dagmar Lasseter. Steve's a big fan of Dagmar Lasseter as well from Hatchet for the Honeymoon. Starring this outrageous Italian shocker from Fulci, who is also quoted as being the godfather of gore. Um, and gore galore is in House by the Cemetery. And this one kicks things off with a bang where a woman is very brutally murdered in this house, the Freudstein house at the beginning of the film. Now, some people are irritated by the young boy Bob, who in every movie this kid was in, Giovanni Frezza, his voice was dubbed, and I believe it was dubbed by a woman. And he has since at conventions apologized for that terrible dubbing. But I think that's probably why people became annoyed with Bob and the other characters that Giovanni Frezza played was because of that bad choice on the dubbing. Um, so uh, we also have May, played by Sylvia Colatina, and she's excellent as May. Bob, don't go inside. And if you're thinking, what in the heck are you talking about, Dana? You got to watch House by the Cemetery to understand what I'm talking about. Blizzle says, phone call, and I come back to Dana going balls to the wall. Love it. Well, actually, I've said it 2 or 3 times tonight, I think, Blissful. Sometimes when I'm talking about gore, I mention balls to the wall. I don't really know why, but that's probably the most audacious thing I can think of when I talk about some of this really great gore. So, yeah, you can't go wrong with House by the Cemetery either. If you're wanting gore, if you're wanting Fulci gore, and let me tell you something about Fulci gore. Fulci gore for me is different than any other type of horror movie gore. And again, if you don't believe me, watch some of these Fulci films I've been talking about tonight, and you'll see exactly what I mean. And if you don't, please visit me on one of these other streams. Say, Dana, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. I watched that, and I don't know what you're talking about when you talk about Fulci gore. Because I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Um, so anyway, House by the Cemetery, highly recommend it. Now don't go out and buy it. Again, watch it for free version. Okay. So the last two films I want to talk about tonight are Dario Argento's Phenomena and Lucio Fulci's Cat in the Brain. This one was from 1990 and Phenomena was from 1985. Well, let's start with that one, shall we? Let's kick this off, and you can see the lovely Jennifer Connelly stars in Phenomena. And you also have a monkey. The monkey looks dangerous there, but actually the monkey's not dangerous. It's not an attack monkey. Yes, beware of Bob. That's right, Blissful. Um, so young Jennifer Corvino, played by Jennifer Connelly from Labyrinth and Top Gun Maverick, is sent to a private Swiss academy for girls where a vicious killer is on the loose. Jennifer has the unique ability to telepathically communicate with insects, and an entomologist, Dr. John McGregor, played by Donald Pleasance, enlists her help in locating the murderer. As the mystery unfolds, they find themselves in a bizarre murder plot with maggots, telepathic insects, and a razor wielding chimpanzee. Can Jennifer uncover the killer's identity before becoming a victim herself? This has the fantastic soundtrack from progressive rock band Goblin. You also have music by British heavy metal masters Motorhead, Iron Maiden, and Andy Sexgang, Bill Wyman, and Simon Boswell. Um, Dalia Di Lazzaro from Andy Warhol's Frankenstein, Daria Nicolodi from Tenebrae and Deep Red, Patrick Bashal from Clear and Present Danger, and Fiore Argento, one of Dario Argento's other daughters from Demons, also star in this truly unique, gory, and unsettling thriller. I couldn't agree more. Victor says everybody hates Bob. A lot of people do. They do. They hate that character, Bob. David, you say Argento was my favorite, but some of the music used in this movie completely baffle me. That's interesting, David. Oh, you say, I thought maybe you were talking about a piece of music. You say Argento is my favorite, but some of the music used in this movie completely baffle me. Um, That's interesting, though, David, because I guess I hadn't really thought of the musical cues per se. That makes me actually want to go back and watch this again, just to listen to those and see how I feel about them. Um, but you have so many twists and turns in this movie. You don't just have gory murders and set pieces in here. You have a very deep and dark mystery in this, about why the killer is doing the things that they do. Who are they trying to protect? Okay. And I won't go any further with that. Um, but fantastic film. Jennifer Connelly is fantastic in this. Donald Pleasance is fantastic. The music is fantastic, in my opinion, from Goblin and the other bands. Um, I just can't really find a flaw with Phenomena. It's still one of those early Argentos for me, and it's beautifully shot, even though we've got a lot of grotesque things happening in the film. It's still so beautiful. The colors are beautiful. If you watch this on 4K, it will take your breath away. When I watched it on Blu ray, it took my breath away on a big screen TV and all that. And that was before, 4K TVs or anything like that. And it was like awe inspiring. It was probably one of the first movies I saw after I got a new HD TV. And those were back in the days when I was living with my parents. And so my big screen TV was in my bedroom and it was close quarters. My bed was here, the TV was on the wall facing the bed. And I would lay there night after night watching movies, many times falling asleep watching movies. Um, I'll tell you, one time I was watching Jaws and I fell asleep and woke up to the shark being right in my face because that's how close the TV was to my bed. Scared the crap out of me. So definitely, again, recommend Argento's Phenomenon. If you haven't seen it, definitely seek out a for free version. If it's been a while since you pulled this one off your shelf and watched it, take another gander at this one. This one's a really, really good one. I know I've been gushing over a lot of these. Better than caffeine, Blissful. Yeah, probably so. Um, so, okay, I ain't gonna lie about this. As far as a Fulci film, you would think that this will be absolutely fantastic, right? Look at that artwork. And it says, warning, due to the shocking and violent subject matter, no one under 17 should view that film. Those of us that are kind of old school, when we see a warning like that, usually that pre-programs us to know that we're about to see some pretty gruesome stuff. Now, the problem, I think, with Cat in the Brain is that it's basically scenes from other Fulci movies, I think, just strung together and woven with this story. Lucio Fulci stars in his own film of a director being driven insane by his own movies. Um, and I think, you know, if it had been done differently, I think this would have been a fantastic film. But I just feel like as much as I love Fulci, I think it was very poorly executed. Um, and this is part of what I mean when I say Fulci's films, especially those in the 90s, because he died in 1996, were very uneven. And this was on the lower end of the spectrum, folks. Um, if you merely just want to sit and watch a bunch of gore scenes strung together, then this is your type of movie. And maybe on a lazy Sunday afternoon, maybe that's what you want to do. But as far as a coherent, well constructed film, Cat in the Brain is not that. Um, and out of these two films that I'm talking about together, Argento's Phenomena and Fulci's Cat in the Brain, Phenomena wins out hands down. A lot of these movies I was talking about tonight, I liked both of them very much so, but I can't say the same for Cat in the Brain. Phenomenon beats it out 10-1, and I I think in the 90s that Fulci was not in good health, David, and that may have been part of it. Um, and that could have very well been why they used footage from his old films. Which I'm not knocking Fulci for this because I don't think Argento has had the health problems that Fulci did in later years, thank goodness. Um, so, you know, perhaps Argento had kind of a leg up on Fulci there. Um, and it's sad and it's unfortunate. But as always, I'm not on here to knock specific directors necessarily because I love most of Fulci's catalog. I absolutely love and enjoy, but this one kind of slid off slid off the map for me a little bit. But David, you could be correct that he was sick and they just used footage of his old films and he put himself in there and made this story around it about a horror director who's slowly losing his mind, or is he? You know. Um, but as far as a film that I would watch over and over again, I would go back to some of Fulci's earlier stuff before I would ever go back to Cat in the Brain. I don't know when I will watch this again. Maybe I'll give it another watch. Um, maybe I was expecting too much. Maybe that was the problem. Um, but I have officially reached the end of the films that I wanted to talk about tonight. And like I said at the beginning of this was an apples and oranges show. But it wasn't really a debate type of thing. It was just mainly a discussion. And I have thoroughly enjoyed the discussion in the chat. We've had a very active chat tonight. And I'm really excited for Argento August. I really, really am. If the response from this apples and oranges has made me very excited about Argento August. Thank you, Blissful. Blissful says, great live, Dana. I think I'm getting back in my groove a little bit, guys and gals. There for a little bit, I was kind of, um, I don't know what it was. It was just, I was thinking of it more like the live streams is more like a job instead of just having fun with them. And now I think I'm getting back to having fun with them again. So, again, I'd like to thank everybody that was in the chat tonight, everybody that was maybe watching. Again, I don't like to call it lurking because it has bad connotations. I want to thank people in advance who watched this on the replay. Um, be sure to check out the Discord, the Patreon. Uh, as soon as me and Candace get some content on Waiting on Woodstock, if you're at all interested in that, check us out on there. Good night, Blissful. And I owe you a message too. So, uh, David, you say, Dana, I highly recommend the book Broken Mirrors, Dark Minds. Really great Dario book. I think Steve may have that, David. I'm going to have to check and see. Steve has several Dario Argento books, and I think he has a Fulci book as well. But I'm pretty sure he has that Argento book. But I'm going to call it a night, folks. Again, thank you for joining me for yet another Apples and Oranges as we navigated through the films of Argento and Fulci. And I'm off like a dirty shirt. And as always, I want to remind you to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. Have a fantastic Wednesday night. We've only got 2 more days in the week, folks. Let's make the most of them and let's slide right into a fantastic weekend as well. And I'll see everybody next time. Bye for now, gang.